Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MMASucka podcast. My name is Frazer Krohn. I guess this is kind of part two of the podcast this week. Obviously, part one was a review of UFC Paris and Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. I'll drop the link in the bio or somewhere down here if you want to go back and watch that, because it was a really good episode to look back on the weekend that was. Manon Fiorot, Benoit Saint Denis, Loughran, McKee, everyone. I discussed everything on that podcast. Catch it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. But this is part two this week, looking ahead to what is a interesting pay-per-view, UFC 293 live from Sydney, the UFC's return to Sydney. I wouldn't say it's the strongest card, top to bottom. There's a lot of Australasian talent on the card. But big name value wise, I would not. I definitely wouldn't say that it's the strongest card that the UFC have ever put out. Me and Tim used to talk about kind of like a money saving pay-per-view card, as it were. And I think this might be that. There's a lot of pay-per-views still left in the year. We've obviously got this pay-per-view. We've got Grasso versus Shevchenko next week. It's not a pay-per-view, it's a fight night, but there too, there's a belt on the line there. That's an expensive card, that is in the T-Mobile Arena. You then look ahead to UFC 294 next October. That's potentially, going to be an expensive card, as it were, with Makhachev and Oliveira, Hamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa on there. You've got a couple of other big names on there, Mohamed Mokaev and Tim Elliott. And then obviously you've got the 30th anniversary card from Madison Square Garden. As of yet, not an awful lot of fights announced on that one. You've obviously got Jones versus Stipe. Jones is a massive star and he's going to cost a lot of money. Derek Brunson, Roman Dolodzi, Mackenzie Dern, Jessica Andrade on that one as well. So is this a money-saving card? It'd be kind of rude to call it that, but it's hard to, if you look just at the main card, it's hard to argue that, it's not. There's a lot of fun fights on this card, with that being said, and it is certainly one that you want to tune in for, because I guarantee that this event will deliver. In the main event, middleweight title, not the fight that we thought we were going to get. With that being said, it's not a bad fight. I think the fight is going to be pretty one-sided. I was listening to Dan Hardy's breakdown on it, and he essentially said, so it's Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland is the main event for the middleweight title. Is he making his first defense of his second reign? Obviously, he knocked out Alex Pereira last time out. Sean Strickland coming off the back of 2 straight wins after being knocked out by Alex Pereira and then losing to Jared Cannonier. He beat Nasruddin Imanov on late notice, and then obviously beat the brakes off Abbas Magomedov in that strangely. It was just an odd main event. Magomedov had no business being in there with Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland headlined yet again in a fight against, like I say, a guy that didn't deserve to be in there with him in Magomedov. Yes, he had the record, but let's be honest, one win in the UFC and getting a main event is certainly questionable. That's just a filler main event, as it were. But going back to this fight, as I was alluding to a minute ago, Dan Hardy said, look, Sean Strickland is very rudimentary. He's got a few things that he does well, and that's pretty much it. He's not a well-rounded mixed martial artist, but he is a guy that does a few things really well. On the other side, you've got Israel Adesanya, who is a pretty well-rounded mixed martial artist, as far as he's got a style. He's got that kickboxing style from his glory days. And he's mixed in or adapted his game to have elite takedown defense. We've barely ever seen him shoot for a takedown. I think the only time we saw him shoot for a takedown was in that first fight with Alex Pereira, and he obviously got the takedown in that fight. But when you're as good as Adesanya at striking, there's no need to look to take the fight to the ground. He's got a 0.06 takedown average with a 14% accuracy. I think that 14% accuracy just comes from, shooting for a couple of takedowns against Pereira and only achieving one. Even in the war with Calvin Gastelum, he didn't shoot for a single takedown. So that kind of tells you what you're going to get. On the other side, well, what you're going to get from the champion, you're going to get really elite stand-up really good stand up from Israel Adesanya. We all know what he brings to the table: kickboxing, counter striking, heavy hands as well. I think it's going to be a really, you know, a counter strike heavy performance from Israel Adesanya. On the other side, facing him in the octagon, Sean Strickland. Now, I do slightly disagree with Dan Hardy to say that he's only got a few things that he does well. He is a well-rounded mixed martial artist when he wants to be. The difficult thing is he doesn't often want to be that well-rounded mixed martial artist, which is, it is what it is for Sean Strickland. He's got to a position now, especially at middleweight. He's got 2 losses at middleweight. He did really well. Sean Strickland spoke himself into this fight because, let's be honest, he doesn't deserve the shot. It's Dricus du Plessis' fight. They wanted Israel Adesanya. The UFC wanted Israel Adesanya to headline in Australia, and Dricus is, I believe, out injured, which is why Sean Strickland's got the shot. Sean Strickland wasn't in the title picture at all prior to Dricus du Plessis getting injured. You don't have 2 men face off with each other in the octagon after Dricus' last win over Robert Whittaker if you're not anticipating a fight between those 2 men. Sean Strickland's found himself in this opportunity off the back of 2 wins against 2 guys that arguably, not even arguably, they're nowhere near championship level. But he's, we've seen already this week that Sean Strickland and Adesanya had a little back and forth previously. I think that was when Pereira and Izzy fought for the first time Sean Strickland was on the card, or whether it was when Izzy fought somebody else on that card. I can't off the top of my head remember who Israel Adesanya fought. It might have been Jared Cannonier on the card, UFC 276. Yeah, so UFC 276. Sean Strickland obviously got knocked out by Alex Pereira. Adesanya cruised to victory against Jared Cannonier, who, just caveating that, is going to be the backup fighter this weekend. Again, Jared Cannonier coming off 2 wins, one over Sean Strickland himself, one over Marvin Vettori last time out. Fingers crossed, no disrespect to Jared Cannonier, but that we don't need Jared Cannonier. I don't want to see Jared Cannonier in there with Israel Adesanya or Sean Strickland again. I want to see Sean Strickland versus Adesanya. Sean Strickland's fight style. So let's go into the actual. That's how we got here. Let's go into the actual fight itself. Similar stats for both men. For those watching on YouTube, I'll share my screen now if I can. So I'll share my screen now. And this is what I'm talking about. This is UFC stats for those listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. This is UFCstats.com. It's something I use all the time. I really think it's a useful tool just to get a bit of a feel for the kind of, the way that both the fighters fight. Interestingly, Israel Adesanya is actually older than Sean Strickland by 3 years. Didn't realize that. I just pictured Sean Strickland being the older man in there. It's not going to make a huge difference. We've got Sean Strickland fighting out of the orthodox stance with Israel Adesanya out of the switch stance. As we know, he will regularly switch between or throw a kick from the orthodox stance, stand in southpaw for a couple of minutes, pick off his opponent back to the orthodox, and he'll avoid strikes by moving out of the way into the opposite stance. It's something that obviously he's picked up from his kickboxing days, and he's elite at doing it. And they're very subtle shifts from stance to stance, which often catches guys out. Obviously, the weight, 185 pounds. Both men have got to hit the weight. No man will struggle to make the weight, I don't believe. Fight time, Israel Adesanya's got a slightly longer fight time, but you have to consider that he is fighting constantly in. He's constantly fighting in. He's constantly fighting in championship fights. Yeah, so sorry about that, guys. I completely lost my train of thought. Israel Adesanya's got a slightly longer average fight time just due to the fact that he's constantly, since I can't remember when, how many fights has Adesanya had now in the UFC, a shed load. But, since you're talking about 5 rounds against Brad Tavares, 5 rounds against Calvin Gastelum, since April of 2019, he hasn't been in a fight that hasn't been scheduled for 5 rounds, and he has gone to decision a lot in those fights. Sean Strickland, on the other hand, pretty much averages, 14 minutes a fight, 14 minutes and 10 seconds a fight. Sean Strickland, not the most prolific finisher in the world. Going back to Tapology here, you look down his wins, especially at middleweight. I think Nordine Taleb was at welterweight. Yeah, so from fighting Jack Marshman, he finished Brendan Allen, which is actually aged really well, but he hasn't finished a fight. Then he fought Jotko to a decision, Uriah Hall to a decision, Jack Hermansson to a decision. Obviously lost in the first round to Pereira. Decision against Jared Cannonier, decision against Nasruddin Imanov, and then finish Abbas Magomedov last time out. What is interesting for me, especially because I'm predicting that this is going to be a stand-up battle. The reason for that, if you just look at the average takedowns, 0.06 for Adesanya, 1 for Sean Strickland. I think in his last 8 fights, Sean Strickland has only shot for in his last 6 fights, he's shot for 8 takedowns, of which 6 of those takedowns came against Uriah Hall. Does that maybe allude to the kind of Sean Strickland that we're going to see? He didn't shoot. I don't think he shot for a single takedown against Alex Pereira, which obviously didn't exactly. Yeah, he didn't shoot for a single takedown, which didn't exactly play to his favor because look what happened there. But he shot for a lot of takedowns against Uriah Hall. So does that kind of allude to the kind of Sean Strickland we're going to get? Someone that does look to mix the martial arts, as it were. Strikes absorbed per minute, Sean Strickland 4.28. That's far too many against a striker as elite as Israel Adesanya. But then strikes landed per minute, 5.86. We know how Sean Strickland's going to fight. He's going to meet Izzy in the middle of the octagon if Izzy allows him to, if Izzy's movement isn't too good. And he's going to take 3 to land 4, take 5 to land 6, take 6 to land 7. I don't see, no disrespect to Sean Strickland, but I don't see how Sean Strickland wins this fight. He doesn't knock Izzy out. I think Izzy's chin is too good. I don't think Sean Strickland hits hard enough. Yes, he knocked out Abbas Magomedov last time out, but you've got to take into account that Abbas Magomedov was absolutely knackered, fatigued, could barely stand. Last time in that second round, he was so tired. He completely gassed out in the first round, exposed himself to not be at that elite level. As I've just alluded to there as well, Israel Adesanya almost exclusively fights in title fights and will do now for the rest of his career. He won't go down to fight in 3-round fights in his entire career, in my opinion. I really don't see it happening. So Izzy won't gas out in this fight. So therefore he won't get tired. I don't think Sean Strickland will be able to fatigue Izzy in this one. I've got an article out on MMASucka.com at the moment, 3 ways in which I can see this one going. I can either see Israel Aesanya completely outclassing and retaining by unanimous decision. I'm talking 50-45, 50-44, 50-43 even. I think he can knock Sean Strickland down multiple times if needs be, making those rounds of 10-8. I just think he's just too good. The second prediction, I'll link the article below so you can read it in more detail because there's a lot of stats and a bit of breakdown in there and a bit of analysis, which I actually really enjoyed writing. But the second way I can see the fight going is he knocking him out, like he did against Paulo Costa, like he did against Alex Pereira last time out. I don't think Sean Strickland can handle the power of Israel Adesanya when he catches him flush on the counters. Izzy's probably one of the better counter strikers in the UFC today. And Sean Strickland, with the volume of strikes that he's going to be throwing at Izzy's going to be making those reads. The third way I can see the fight potentially going is Sean Strickland causing a massive upset. I don't quite see how he does it unless he just overwhelms Israel Adesanya, unless Israel Adesanya hasn't taken Sean Strickland seriously, if he gets caught with something. But I just really cannot see Sean Strickland's keys to victory. What I can see is Israel Adesanya being a round down after the first 5 minutes. That is purely because he's going to be there with Sean Strickland. Sean Strickland notoriously fights every single day in the gym. He spars very, very often. So he's going to have his timing down almost instantly, in my opinion. Israel Adesanya is going to be stood there with a guy in front of him who's got really he's got his timing down, as I alluded to just now. He's going to be throwing a lot of shots, I believe. I do believe Sean Strickland is going to be trying to overwhelm Israel Adesanya with too much sort of stimulus for him to be really getting his shots off. I think Israel Adesanya will knock Sean Strickland out in the third round. That is my official pick. I think he loses the first round because he's going to be making those reads. Then the second round, he's going to be setting the traps. And the third round, I think he knocks him out. That's my official pick. And I can't see, I can't, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I think that's a really good pick. The first round, he's going to be making the reads of a guy that's going to be coming out with a lot of shots and a lot of, he'll whip the leg kick into Sean Strickland and reduce that movement, reduce his forward pressure in that first round. But I think he will lose the first round because Sean Strickland will get his eye in quicker. He will find his range a lot quicker against Israel Adesanya because of the amount of sparring that he's doing. That second round, he's going to really, the crowd's going to be getting on his back. Let's not forget Israel Adesanya from New Zealand, the fighter going on in Australia. He's going to have the whole crowd behind him. He's going to be implementing the traps that he's going to be utilizing the openings, should we say, that he found in that first round through the volume of Sean Strickland. And he's going to be, setting these traps. And then in that third round, I think is really where he begins to take over the fight and knock Sean Strickland out. I think Sean Strickland probably falls for the traps that Izzy set. I mean, look at how Sean Strickland was knocked out against Alex Pereira. A couple of rips to the body. He drops his hands really, really low, left hook upstairs, and Alex Pereira is a fairly rudimentary knockout for Alex Pereira, someone of Alex Pereira's skill. Knocked Sean Strickland out with relative ease. That is my official pick, guys. I'm going Israel Adesanya third round, probably TKO. I don't think he knocks him out clean, but that's how I see the fight going. Likewise, in the co-main event, we've got Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov, a fight that I see also ending in a KO, this time in favor of Australia's own Bam Bam Tai Tuivasa. Let's not forget the last time we saw Tai was against Sergey Pavlovich. The time before that was against Cyril Gane, where he was, I wouldn't say exposed, but he was pretty badly beaten in both of those fights. The Gane fight in particular, he took a lot of damage. That Pavlovich fight, I believe, he didn't really get out the first couple of seconds of that fight. Yeah, 54 seconds Sergey Pavlovich beat him in. It's certainly a step back in competition because we've been talking about, like I say, in the first podcast this week that I'll link below, you talk about Sergey Pavlovich, Cyril Gane, and Tom Aspinall being the three guys underneath Miocic and Jones for the heavyweight title. So it's certainly a step back in competition to face off against Alexander Volkov. Volkov's actually gone up a place in the rankings this week. Sergey Spivak's dropped down to 8th. Volkov jumped up to 7th. So you've got a 6th versus 7th in this fight. It's going to be a close fight. I generally do think it's going to be a close fight because Alexander Volkov, after losing to Tom Aspinall in dominant fashion, as we kind of predicted, has looked quite good. He knocked out Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the first round, and then he knocked out Alexander Romanov in the first round. Romanov didn't land a glove on him in March. Literally no strikes landed, and 27 total strikes landed for Volkov. I think he'll look to mix in the takedowns a little bit more in this one. Once he feels that power of Bam Bam Tuivasa, I do think that he'll look to maybe not even go for the takedown, but certainly try and get the fight in the clinch, which is something that you've got to be very careful with Tuivasa. If you remember when he fought Derek Lewis, that short elbow knocked Lewis clean out. I do think that Tai Tuivasa will win this fight, but Tai's career has been so up and down that we just don't know what we're going to get from him. Let's not forget that he lost 3 fights on the bounce, cut from the UFC, came back to the UFC, knocked out Stefan Struve, knocked out Harry Hunsucker, knocked out Greg Hardy, knocked out Augusto Sakai, knocked out Derek Lewis, fought Cyril Gane and was finished in the third round, fought Sergey Pavlovich, was finished in the first round. He's obviously taken 9 months off now since that Sergey Pavlovich loss. I think so that was it last December. He faces Volkov. Volkov is a well-rounded guy. He's got 46 professional fights. I think he's a former Bellator heavyweight champion. So That's your co-main event. I'm picking Tai Tuivasa by knockout. I think Volkov, as we saw in the Derek Lewis fight, does have a tendency to lose concentration, maybe shut off for moments in the fight, which Tai can utilize. I think Tai slams that big leg kick of his into those long legs of Alexander Volkov, but I can also see Volkov winning this by decision. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage, 5-inch height advantage, so he can keep it long if he knows how to fight long. Stefan Struve was awful at fighting long, despite all of his physical attributes. I do think Tai Tuivasa wins via knockout, but if Volkov wins, I do think it's by decision. And then we kind of get into the rest of the card, shall we say? Like I said, I don't think this is a massively great pay-per-view card. Yes, we've had some pullouts. We're supposed to have Kai Kara France versus Manal Cape. Kara France was, had to withdraw from that one. Manal Cape luckily stays on the card against Felipe dos Santos. Cape, since joining the UFC, joined with a lot of hype coming out of Rising. He lost to Pantoja, which, I mean, look at that for a win has aged quite well. He also lost to Mateus Nicolau. Again, a loss that, although it's devastating, it's not the worst loss in the world. He's now enjoying a 3-fight winning run. Ode Osborne, Sumagulov, and David Dobrak. Unluckily for Kara France, for Manal Cape, he's had 3 cancelled fights now, 3 pulled out opponents. He was supposed to fight in March against Alex Perez. Perez withdrew from the fight on fight day. On the day of weigh-ins. He was supposed to fight Davison Figueiredo. Figueiredo wasn't medically cleared. He was supposed to fight Kai Kara France. Kai Kara France wasn't cleared. So now he's fighting Felipe dos Santos, a guy that's 7-0 with 5 finishes, 3 submissions, 2 knockouts, 2 decisions. He's a very good fighter. He's 7-0. I can't pretend that I know loads about him, but to be 7-0 in this sport is certainly impressive. He's been fighting. He fought in LFA. He was meant to be fighting. He's meant to fight twice on the Contender Series this year. First time Charizes got signed to the UFC. So obviously pulled out of his Contender Series fight, and then Luciano Pereira botched his weight cut, and Felipe dos Santos has been given the opportunity. It's a difficult one. Again, official pick Manal Cape. I just think Manal Cape's better, but it's a strange one for me. Why this is so high up on the main card, and then we've got another strange one, but a really good fight. I think Austin Lane versus Justin Tafa. Obviously, that first fight they fought in June. Austin Lane accidental eye poke on Justin Tafa after 29 seconds of the first round. So we didn't get to see anything from that fight. These two guys will stand in the middle of the octagon and swing away. Justin Tafa, we know what he's all about. That win against Jorgen De Castro kind of speaks for itself. Both men just swinging away. Since then, he's had a couple of losses and 3 wins. He's riding a 2-fight winning run at the moment. Head kick against Harry Hunsucker, the counter left knockout of Parker Porter, and then obviously the no contest against Austin Lane. Lane, I mean, it's difficult. He tried on the Contender Series first time round against Greg Hardy, lost that, went back to the drawing board, as it were, lost again, then picked up 2 wins, lost again. He almost seemed like he was never really going to make it. Since then, however, since his third professional loss, that was back in March of 2020, he's picked up 6 wins, all of which have been via finish. He got the second shot, as it were, on the Contender Series, and I think this is a fun fight to put on the main card. Is it going to have title implications? God no, but it's a fun fight to put on the main card. As is Tyson Pedro versus Anton Terliger. Is this a gimme fight for Pedro? Pedro took all that time off. I still don't really know why he took all that time off. He beat Mauricio Shogun Rua in December of 2018, and then he didn't return until April of 2022. He's 2-1 since his return. This one, again, I think I'm not sure quite why this is on the main card, but it is what it is. It's going to be a fun fight. Tyson Pedro always brings a fun fight, but there's a couple of really competitive fights to watch out for on the prelims. Carlos Ulberg versus Daeun Young is a really good fight at light heavyweight. Ulberg obviously lost his got the opportunity through the Contender Series, lost his debut, since then gone on a 4-fight winning streak, of which his last 3 have come via knockout. Daeun Young, I think, lost his last one, and he lost his last 2. But I remember that fight with Justin Jacoby was a close fight until it wasn't. He lost last time out via decision against Devin Clark. I think this is going to be a really good fight and just a really exciting fight, and it's one to certainly keep an eye on. We've got Jamie Mullarkey, never in a boring fight, so tune in for Jamie Mullarkey. Nasrat Haqparast returns. Again, never really in a boring fight. He takes on Landon Quinones. Strange fight, in my opinion, to put on an Australian pay-per-view, Haqparast and Quinones, but, it is what it is. You got the return of Blood Diamond, who obviously came in with an awful lot of hype and was choked out in the first round. He then lost a decision in July of last year to Orion Coskery. Coskery, yeah. And then now he fights Charlie Radteki. Chuck Buffalo, should we call him, as his nickname may allude to, making his UFC debut. I mean, this is last chance saloon for Blood Diamond. He comes in with a lot of hype. He's a cool guy, He's obviously Adesanya's teammate. He's a kickboxer, so he's got that fan-friendly style. If he loses here, he's done, and the experiment fails, unfortunately. But let's hope that he can pick up a victory. Talking about fan-friendly styles, Shane Young returns. Shane Young will bring the intensity. He'll bring the hype. He'll bring everything, and he'll need everything in this fight, because he's enduring, should we say, a 3-fight losing streak. He went the distance with Volkanovski. He then won 2 back-to-back. He then lost to Ludwig Klein when Klein missed weight. He lost to Omar Morales, and then he lost to Blake Builder last time out. He takes on Gabriel Miranda. Miranda 0-1 in the UFC, having lost to Benoit Saint-Denis on his debut. Again, I think, like Blood Diamond, this is last chance saloon for Shane Young, and he really, really needs to win. And opening up the card as per Tapology, I'm not sure if this is going to be the first fight on the card or not, but if it is the first fight on the card, get your bums in seats early doors. Kiefer Big Daddy Crosby making his UFC debut, 10-3. I just think back to his fight in Bama with Josh Plant. Absolutely brutal, bloody battle. He's over in Australia. He's part of SBG Ireland. Last time out, I'll be honest, strange one. He fought Aaron Chalmers in the Kingpin high stakes boxing tournament. He hasn't fought in MMA since April of this year, but when he did fight in April of this year, he fought Alex Cowboy Oliveira and TKO'd him in the first round. I really like Kiefer Crosby, and I'm talking to a couple of the guys at MMASucka. Do I think he's going to be a world champion? No, I do not. He's too old. He's 33 years old now. Do I think he's going to be one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC to date? Yes, I do. He will come and bring the absolute fire every single time. He's got 3 wins by decision, 2 wins by submission, 5 wins by knockout. This is a guy who has wanted this opportunity for as long as I can remember, following him on social media. And he will grab this opportunity with both hands. He beat UFC caliber guys. Alex Oliveira is a UFC caliber guy. Yes, he was cut from the promotion, but he's picked up multiple wins in the UFC. Alex Oliveira. He beat him in the first round, knocked him out. He's a kickboxer, so he's that fan-friendly style, Kiefer Crosby. And I think he probably picks up a brutal victory in this one against Kevin Jousset. Strange again that this fight wasn't on the French card, but Jousset obviously fights out of, just reading here, also making his debut off the back of 3 straight wins. fights out of City Kickboxing. I can't say that I know anything about, as you say, but Kiefer Crosby, I know a lot about, and I'm very, very excited for his debut. So that's it. That's the UFC 293 preview, guys. A really good card. The main event is certainly one to watch. Kiefer Crosby, definitely watch. The co-main event between Tai Tuivasa and Volkov will be violent, and there are going to be a lot of fun all-action fights on this card. I don't see this card being a grappling-heavy card. So if that's your type of thing, if you love the stand-up game, definitely tune in, because it's going to be, like I say, very fan-friendly for you guys. I'll be here on Monday breaking down the card, Sunday on Monday anyway, breaking down the card that was the UFC 293, and probably then looking ahead to the title fight between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. Guys, get in the comments below. Let me know how you think the main event's going to play out, the co-main events. Like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Thank you.